You've heard that the whole food plant-based diet can help you lose weight, and it's a healthy choice. But did you know it can also reverse diseases like heart disease, atherosclerosis and diabetes, amongst others? Welcome to the Fabulous Health Show. I'm your host, Terry Chrisman. I'm a whole food, plant-based nutritionist, and this show gives you the tools to help you obtain optimal health so that you can live a long, happy life and age with grace and vitality. It's episode 60. So today we are going to be looking at the scientific evidence behind a whole food plant-based diet, and can you actually reverse disease by eating this way? Well, let's find out. First of all, let's have a look at the state of health in America. This information all came from the CDC government website in January 2022. So the stats are 73.6% of people are overweight or obese, and of those, 42.5% of people in the United States are obese. Now, we all know, well, I know, and I hope you know, that a high BMI, and that's a body mass index, a high BMI is a precursor to other diseases such as diabetes, heart disease, and all the diseases that we're going to be discussing today. And what happens is the more fat that you have in your body, the more inflammation you have. And if you've been listening to the Fabulous Health Show previously, then you'll know that inflammation is at the root of all disease. Let's look at some of these diseases individually. Heart disease, 696,000 people die of heart disease every year. It is the #1 cause of death in the USA, which means that 1 out of every 4 people that dies from any reason whatsoever dies from heart disease. Now, stroke is also a vascular disease. This kills an additional 160,000 people per year. So this is almost 800,000 people per year in the USA are dying of these heart disease and stroke, both vascular diseases. Let's have a look at diabetes. 34 million people are diagnosed with diabetes in America, but would you believe there are an additional 88 million people who have pre-diabetes and are left undiagnosed? Now, when your blood sugars are out of control and you are undiagnosed and you are not taking measurements to mitigate the changes in your body because of the diabetes, that's when you get all the bad things leading to neurological damage, blindness, even limb amputation and death. Let's look at cancer. There are 1.7 million people in America who have cancer, and out of those people, 600,000 of them this year will die. Guess what? Only 10% of cancers are genetic, which means that 90% of cancers can be avoidable. And how do you avoid them? With a change in lifestyle. What about diseases that don't particularly kill you but are really painful and that you don't want to have in your life? Arthritis and inflammation diseases. So 21.4% of people in the United States are suffering with rheumatoid arthritis. This is an inflammatory disease. So if you take away the inflammation, then you should take away these inflammatory diseases such as arthritis. Alzheimer's claims 134,000 people every single year. 5.7 million people have Alzheimer's disease, and all that makes up about half the people in nursing homes. And Alzheimer's is a vascular disease. Now, what do I mean by that? Why do we lose our memory when we're old? Because the blood can't get into the tissues of the brain, and then the tissues in the brain start dying, And why can the blood not get into the brain? Because the blood vessels in the brain are all clogged up with fat from having a not so fantastic lifestyle over the past, 60, 70 years. So you find that people who have heart disease or suffer a stroke or have atherosclerosis also tend to have Alzheimer's because it's systemic. You have blood vessels all over your body, not just in your heart, not just in your arms and legs, also in your brain. And what about depression? Could you believe that food has something to do with depression? There are 46,000 suicidal deaths in America every single year. Now, I'm not suggesting that if everybody changed their diet, there would be no depression and then there would be no suicidal deaths. But let me tell you, a healthy lifestyle and exercise is better at treating depression than any drug on the market. And I stand by that claim. So apart from the cost of losing our loved ones, apart from the cost of having debilitating lifestyle diseases that really screw up your life and stop you from living, how much does it physically cost? It costs Americans $3.8 trillion every single year. I don't even know how many zeros that are, but I think it's a million is a trillion. So $3.8 million every single year spent on healthcare. The US is ranked, get a load of this, last. I'll say that again. The US is ranked last of 11 developed countries such as Sweden and Australia and the UK and Canada, ranked last in healthcare. Because even though Americans are spending so much money, no one's healthy. And guess what? That $3.8 trillion actually makes up 18% of the US economy. Imagine if we could save people the pain and suffering of being ill, save people the pain and suffering of losing their loved ones, and, save the economy and save money. Imagine what we could do with $3.8 trillion, putting them into other services for people who maybe need them, the underprivileged, the people who are on the poverty line. Hey, I'm not a politician, but that's just my 5 cents on what we could do with that money if people were a little bit healthier. Guess what, people? It's the food. I'm telling you, it's the food. This is a fantastic quote I took from Dr. Michael Clapper. Go check him out at drclapper.com. He's hilarious. I love him. And he says, it's the food, people. And it's true. What you put on in your body can determine how healthy you are. And it's not that you ate that burger today or that donut yesterday. It's that you eat that burger often in the last 20 years, and you go to that donut shop often in the last 15 years, and it's all accumulative. So let's look at animal products. Animal products such as meat, cheese, dairy, poultry, eggs, and fish, they all contain saturated fat and cholesterol. And if you've been listening to the Fabulous Health Show, then you will know that saturated fat is the stuff that gets stuck in your arteries. It raises your blood cholesterol and it forms into these foam cells and little kind of clots inside your blood vessels, and so your blood can't get through to the tissues. This is what causes heart disease, vascular disease, stroke, diabetes, high blood pressure, and Alzheimer's. I've said it a million times. If you eat meat products, animal products, this is what's going on in your body. And in fact, there was a study a few years ago, which I didn't put in this presentation today, but I did read it while I was putting the presentation together. And scientists did autopsies on car crash victims between the ages of 17 and 34. So these were young adults who had unfortunately died in car crashes. And they did autopsies on these poor people. And what did they find? they found that like half of them already had the makings of heart disease, already had the makings of atherosclerosis in their body at such a young age, because already they were going down this path of a poor lifestyle, of fast food, of processed food, of animal products, not getting enough fruits and vegetables, and not getting enough exercise. That's just an aside. What else do animal products have inside them? Well, they have stress hormones, they have antibiotics, they have medicines, they have all sorts of chemicals. And guess what? When you eat them, those things go inside your body and you just do not want them. You are not a cow. You are not a pig. You are not a chicken. You were not made to have cow, pigs, and chickens hormones inside your body. They mess with your human hormones, and all these things promote obesity and weight gain. Now, I've said it before and I'm going to say it again. There is a statement from the World Health Organization from 2018 stating that processed meat is a class 1 carcinogen, the same as smoking. So if you're eating the things that are on this picture, and for those of you who are listening to the podcast, I've got a photo here of processed meats such as salami and bacon and ham and prosciutto, and I don't even know what the other things are called, but the picture is showing that product. And that is the sort of stuff, the sausages and the stuff in the deli, the sliced turkey even, that's the stuff that is a known class 1 carcinogen. Do not put that in your body, people, if you do not want to get cancer. So the science is absolutely clear. Animal products are detrimental to our health. But the question is, can a whole food, plant-based diet reverse all the badness that we did to our bodies in the preceding years? Have we been eating the pizzas and the McDonald's and the processed food and the sliced cheese and sliced ham sandwiches and all the lollies and things? Can a plant-based diet reverse disease? Well, the science is clear it can, and let's find out why. Let's go all the way back to World War II. Now, before World War II, the incidence of cardiovascular disease in Europe, and that's where I'm getting my information from, is a study from 1947 from Europe, and the incidence of cardiovascular disease was rising. But then during the war, there was a real shortage of meat and dairy and fat. And so Finland particularly, and most of Europe, saw a dramatic decline in deaths from cardiovascular disease. Now, afterwards, after the war, what happened was the food shortages were no longer, and people could get meat and people could get dairy and people could get fat for their cooking. And so slowly but surely, those cardiovascular disease deaths started increasing again. Now, that did not happen in the USA, because what happened in the USA is the war really didn't come to America wide scale, except for Pearl Harbor, of course. But the people in America were still living that lifestyle. And if you're looking at the video, you can see on the graph here the absolute decline in cardiovascular disease deaths in Sweden, in Finland, in Norway, and in Italy during the war, and after the war, those deaths rising again. But in the USA, from 1935 all the way to 1947, I'll just show you with my hand, or wrong hand, the death rose, just like it's been doing now, just like it's been happening in America and Australia and other places for the last, since the 70s and 80s. It was happening back in the 50s. Let's have a look at Cuba. So what happened was in the 80s, America put an embargo on Cuba, and so Cuba could not import meat. They couldn't import processed foods. They couldn't import a lot of stuff. One of the things they could not import was fuel for their cars. So people had to start walking, and they had to start riding bikes and look at different modes of transport. And I'm just going to show you, I don't know if you can see my mouse or not, but if you see the blue line that runs through these graphs, that's the obesity line, how fat people were. So prior to 1980, the Cubans were on a trajectory of increasing fatness. And then when the embargo came in 1986, you'll find that between 1990 and 1995, everybody got really skinny. Yeah, because they didn't have those processed foods. They had to start growing their own produce, their fruits and vegetables. They had to start growing them, and they were walking everywhere, and they were riding their bikes. And then the sanctions were lifted, and the Cubans got more things from overseas. They got some stuff from Russia, in fact, and you'll see that from 1995 up to 2010, where this graph finishes, you'll find that the obesity started increasing again. And likewise, with all the other indicators of disease, there's a dotted line for diabetes that shows the same trend. Prior to the 1990, you're going to find that the diabetes epidemic was getting, very severe, and more and more people were getting diabetes. But then after everybody lost the weight, the incidence of diabetes was less. And it's the same with the cancer, it's the same with the stroke, and it's the same with the cardiovascular disease. So these are just historical indications of what happens when you minimize your calories. Yeah, so meat was harder to get, but these people weren't going on a whole food plant-based diet en masse. Yes, they were eating more vegetables, but they couldn't afford the meat, and they were doing more exercise. But what happens when you actually take a vegetarian diet and you see what happens to people? So let's look at the Adventist health study. This is an enormous study that took part in the early 2000s. There were over 70,000 participants, and it was an observational study. So what they did, the researchers took these 73,000 participants, and they got them to fill out questionnaires. Who are you? How old are you? What kind of diet do you have? Do you smoke? Do you exercise? All the questions that they ask people about their health. Now, they followed them over almost 6 years, and they kept asking them the same questions. What do you eat? How many times do you eat meat? How many times do you eat fish? How many vegetables do you eat in a day? Etc., etc. They asked them all these questions. And over that period of 6 years, 2,500 people died. Yeah, and that's normal because these people were, older adults or whatever, of a wide variety of ages. But over a period of 6 years, 73,000 people are going to die. They're going to die of all causes. Yeah, some of them might die of sickness, some of them might die of old age, some of them might die in an accident, etc. But what they found was that the men who ate vegan all the time were at 28% less risk of dying of anything. So that's a really big, significant finding. They also found that just on cardiovascular death, the men were 55% less 55% less risk of dying of cardiovascular death. Now, this is a case study, and if you are not watching this on video, I urge you to go back to fabuloushealth.net and find episode 60 and look at the video, because these slides are just amazing. This is a case study from Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, and Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, he is a cardiologist, and he had a patient that came to him with chest pains, and they did an angiogram, and they found that this picture on the left is his distal left anterior descending artery, which is an artery on the heart. And it's the artery that supplies the blood to the heart. So if this artery gets clogged and you can't get blood to it, you have a massive heart attack, and it's very highly likely that you die. And in fact, this is called the Widowmaker Artery. And my dad died from having this artery occluded, and he had a Widowmaker heart attack, and he was dead in an instant, and we didn't even know he had heart disease. So if you wondered why I'm passionate about getting people to be healthy, that's one of my reasons. So if you have a look at this left artery, you can see that it's really, really skinny. The artery itself is not skinny. It's just that all the dark parts are clots of atherosclerosis, fatty deposits in the artery, and this is what's giving this man pain and angina. Angina is a name for heart pain caused by blockages in your arteries. Oh, and then so what happened was Dr. Esselstyn prescribed a whole food plant-based diet to this man, and then you'll see on the right-hand side the artery is completely clear. And after 32 months of a whole food plant-based diet, without a stent, without medication, this man reversed his heart disease. And I didn't mention, for the people who are listening, there's also a picture of an artery on here showing you that there's a picture of the clean artery, and then the fatty deposit is building up, and then you get a foam cells going to making the artery narrower and narrower. And then the very last one is when the fatty deposit bursts and it blocks the artery completely and forms a blood clot in the artery, and no blood can get through, and then you have a heart attack. So yes, this is just one person, but it's really important to know that if it can happen for one person, it can happen for a lot of people. And that's what this is showing, is that it's proof that changing your diet can reverse heart disease. And look, Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn has lots and lots of studies proving that this works on other people, and he's got tons of case studies, and you can go to his website to check that out as well. Now let's look at another doctor, Dr. Ornish. So Dr. Ornish has been doing lifestyle medicine for 35 years, and he has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of studies. And let me see if I can click this and see what happens. No, I cannot do that. Okay, so I wanted to actually take you to Dr. Ornish's website, but you can go to it. It's called Ornish Lifestyle Medicine, and he has tons and tons and tons of studies that you can check on his testing out the whole food plant-based lifestyle. So here's a study that he did on a whole bunch of people. So he went to 24 different sites, almost 3,000 people, men and women from socio-economically diverse backgrounds. And they all went on a whole food plant-based diet for 12 weeks. And they all found, listen to this, 100% of people who were compliant, which was about 80% of the people who took the study, had improvements in BMI, which means they lost weight, improvements in their triglycerides, their LDL cholesterol, which is the bad cholesterol, their total cholesterol, lowering their blood pressure, lessening of depressive symptoms, and more functional capacity. What do I mean by more functional capacity? They could do things like walk up and down the stairs that they couldn't do before. Maybe they had less pain in their body. Maybe they were able to ride their bikes. All these things changed for them in just 12 weeks. Now, what about after a year? Well, guess what? Because the changes were so profound, would you believe that 80% of participants continued to follow the whole food plant-based diet for a year at follow-up, and the improvements were all made more so than at 12 weeks. This is phenomenal, because how many people do you think who start a new diet continue the diet after a year? Well, the normal statistic is 5%. 5% of people normally 5% of people normally continue a diet when they start it after a year, which means 95% of people normally ditch the diet completely. But Dr. Ornish's diet was so sustainable and so good for these people, and they saw such amazing changes that they stayed on the diet for over a year. Okay, next slide. This is where you can find all this research. You can go to nutritionfacts.org. You can see lots and lots of scientific research there. It's a fantastic website. It's all in little itty bitty video bite-sized pieces. That is fantastic. That's a website by Dr. Michael Greger. You can go to the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. I'm a member of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, and in the coming months, I am going to be certified by them by doing their exam so that I can help more people on their lifestyle journey. You can also sign up for the International Journal of Disease Reversal and Prevention. You don't need to be a doctor to sign up to this journal. That is magnificent. They've made it free for everyone. Now, I don't know about you, but if you've ever tried to look for scientific research and you're not at university, every time you find a good study that you want to click on, they want to charge you $30 to read it. This is a totally free open source journal, and it's really, really high quality. So sign up for that. Another place that you can find great research is at the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. It's pcrm.org. So I hope you found this podcast helpful. I hope it gave you some thought that this is a real deal. This is not just some internet thing that, oh yeah, Terry thinks it's a great idea to eat plants and she's a crazy vegan, so yeah, whatever. No, it's all backed in science. And I said it a few podcasts ago, if you look at all the individual ingredients in a whole food plant-based diet, you would be very, very hard pressed to find any studies to find that they are detrimental to your health. Are vegetables detrimental to your health? No. Fruits, no. Whole grains, legumes, nuts and seeds. The only detrimental thing about nuts and seeds is that they do put on a bit of weight. So if you want to lose weight, you want to go easy on those. So if you do a whole food plant-based diet with those 5 food groups, you're pretty much guaranteed to be healthier over the long term. Now, thank you so much for watching and listening to the Fabulous Health Show. I really appreciate it. Please subscribe. You can go to fabuloushealth.net and you can subscribe. Just click on the podcast tab and all the podcast platforms are there. You can also watch me live every Monday on Facebook, in my Facebook group, and on YouTube. So I want to thank you so much for watching and listening today. And you guys have a fabulous day.